Today on Keeping It Real.
Charlie, who was 14 years old and like a son to her, recently passed away this past March as a result of huffing.
There's no greater pain in this world than burying a child.
That's right.
You shared with us that you're getting a load of emails coming in from teenagers that are saying, please come to our school, and like you said, teenagers, they don't want to tell on each other.
Kristen Maddox overcame a 12-year addiction. Now she pulls others out knowing that some have escaped death for the last time. Shauna Butler understands the pain of sexual abuse. Now she uses her voice to unhush the little girls inside of women she counsels. This is Keeping It Real.
Good morning and welcome to Keeping It Real. You are not going to want to miss today's show. It doesn't matter if you're a father, a mother, or a teenager, and I know you teens are out of school right now. Why is today's show so important? Because of the message. Our guest today is Stacie Triche. She is the author of Concealed Names, and she is here to talk about a very, very important subject that is not being discussed in the schools. And she has a heart to go into the schools and share her message about huffing. Stacie, we welcome you to Keeping It Real and are very glad to have you here today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Can you share a little bit about your book, Concealed Names?
Yes, Concealed Names. I wrote the book because as a child, in my elementary days, I was bullied. And it was to the point of I was just feeling so down on myself, down in the dumps. But the reason I was bullied was because I had gone from a Christian school and moved into a public school where God was no longer the center focus. And the students there within that school didn't understand why I was all into Jesus and praying and bowing my head at the lunch table at 12 years old and praying. And because of that, they ridiculed me. So much so that one day I sat down at the lunch table, and because I sat down, the entire bunch that was sitting around that table got up and left. And then a teacher walked by me at that point and looked down at me at 12 years old and said, "What did you do?" And I couldn't even answer her. I was speechless. I remember thinking to myself, I stood up for Jesus. That's what I did.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. That's amazing. You never realize how, I know Kristen mentioned your book, Concealed Names, and how, God can take what the devil meant for bad and turn it around for good. And now you were able to birth through that a book in order to help others that are dealing with bullying.
Right.
So that's a blessing.
Yes, it is. I wrote Concealed Names not just for bullying. I wrote it in a sense for young adults and adults alike to realize that God has a purpose and a plan for their lives. It doesn't matter what you're going through. It doesn't matter if you're being bullied. It doesn't matter if you're being molested. It doesn't matter if you're being abused at home. It doesn't matter what the circumstance is. God still has a plan for your life.
That's right. What made you choose the name Concealed Names?
Most people go through their lives and they do not know what their name means. You are not given your name by chance. God gave you that name. It was a divine intervention from Jesus, the name that you have.
That's awesome. And so what can people expect when they read your book? What is it about?
It is a book that brings supernatural warfare directly into your face. If you're into action, if you like fast-paced books, if you want to have a edge of your seat thrill ride, there's also 4 Cajun grandmas in it that are hilarious. So from my Cajun roots, I decided to bring that aspect of my life into the book as well. But what I want to caution parents, if you have a child under the age of 13, I caution you to read the book first before you allow your child to read it. And the reason being is because it is supernatural warfare and it is demonic beings versus spiritual beings.
What made you choose that type of book, like to choose to do the demonic against the spiritual beings?
We go through this life and we look at it as a physical, like we're dealing with each other in flesh and blood, but we're not. We are not dealing with flesh and blood. We are dealing with supernatural warfare. We are dealing with a spiritual realm.
Right.
Children today, teenagers today, are not being taught that. Right. They're being taught, I'm mad at you, and this is the way we need to react because we're mad at you. Or I'm mad at this person, and so let's ignore them and let's, do these things, these hurtful things, backstabbing, what have you. when if they were taught that it's more than just what you're seeing in flesh and blood. It's more than what you're hearing, the words that you're hearing. What it is it's a devil that's on the rampage, and he's out to seek, kill, and destroy.
Right. It reminds me of the scripture that says we don't fight against flesh and blood, but against spiritual things, principalities in high places. And so I'm so glad that this book is out. So what you're saying is that the characters in the book are actually seeing things in the spiritual realm and live kind of instead of the physical realm.
They see it in the physical, but they're also witnessing it very much so in the spiritual realm.
Right. So if you pick up this book and you read it, you'll be able to kind of relate to, it's not just happening here.
That's correct.
I have to be aware of what's happening in the spiritual realm.
Yes, and there are very real life circumstances and happenings in the book, and that's why I tell parents if they're under the age of 13, please read it first.
Yeah, that's good.
And then you had a very hard, traumatic thing happen with the loss of your nephew that was like a son to you.
Yes.
Just this past March. Can you share with our viewers?
I originally started out seeking God when I wrote the book, asking God what was the message that he wanted me to portray. And I knew that I'd written the book because I'd been bullied. And I felt that was what God was trying to relay as a message through me. And so I began speaking in schools and getting on television, having television interviews, radio interviews, and I was out speaking out against bullying. And my nephew, Concealed Names was his favorite book, and it was inspired, the two main characters were inspired by my nephew Charlie and my niece Faith Ann, his sister. Well, Charlie loved the book. It was his favorite book. And he and I had many conversations, and he just believed with all his heart that one day that book was going to be a movie, because it's a 1 in a 4 book series. So he's like, Aunt, that's going to make an awesome movie. He hated to read, but for my birthday, as a birthday present, the whole week before, he sat in his room and he read the book. Wow. So for when he came to my house for my birthday party, he said, Aunt, I read the book. He said, I loved it. He said, I can't wait till you start book 2. I can't wait to read it. So,
well, before you finish that story, let's take a commercial break, and we're going to hear more about Charlie and the story and what happens after that when we return.
Today, girls will die as a result of abuse that went too far, drug overdose, and even suicide. It doesn't have to end like that. There is hope. Hi, I'm Kristen Maddox, founder of A Door of Hope Ministries. A Door of Hope provides free services to girls and women that are stuck in a vicious cycle. Some have escaped death for the last time. Without a place to go, they will return to the streets, their abuser, jail, or even worse, end up dead. Let's rescue them by providing a home where they can come free of charge to receive the healing they need. There's a cry in their souls for freedom. We're responding to their cries. The question is, will you help us? Visit our website at www.adoorofhopela.com or call 225-665-HOPE. Together, we can make the difference between life and death.
Thank you for tuning back in to Keeping It Real. We're here with our guest, Stacie Triche, and before we went to commercial break, we were talking about your book, Concealed Names, and we were also talking about your nephew, Charlie, and we want to find out what happened after the release of your book with your nephew.
He was very adamant that the book was going to become a movie someday, because like I said, it's a 1 in 4 book series, and he loved all the action adventure in it and the supernatural, and he said, Ann, I just know that, God's going to use the book to minister to teenagers and adults. And we'd had that conversation many times. On March the 21st, he passed away of this year. And he was in his classroom a week prior to that. And a classmate stole a can of keyboard air duster from a teacher's desk, and he huffed it in front of Charlie and told Charlie it was no different than sucking helium from a balloon. So Charlie tried it, and they both were talking funny. A week later, he decided to try it again at home. His best friend was there. His best friend did not do it. His best friend said he was giggling, laughing. when he came back into the room, and he stood up. He got up off his bed, stood up, and he laid down on the floor, face down, on the pallet that they'd made, because they decided they were going to play Xbox all night. So they made a big pallet on the floor. And when he laid down on the floor, his best friend asked him, he said, "Charlie, man, you okay?" And he looked up at him, he said, "I feel sick." And he said, "Well, you want me to get somebody?" He's like, "No, I'm okay." He said, I feel sick. He's like, "I'm just going to go to sleep. It'll be okay." 15 minutes later, his best friend shook him, and he was unresponsive.
And he was 14.
14.
Now, you are talking about this can of air, right? The air that you spray?
And that's the misconception. And that was the misconception Charlie had. And that's what message I want to relay to not only teenagers, but to these parents. You think that sucking the helium from the balloons is innocent, but it's telling these kids that it's okay to suck things into their lungs that may not be good for them.
Right.
And I'm guilty. I'd sucked the balloons around him a million times, handed him balloons to suck, and he was talking funny. And let me back up. Charlie was a child that was beyond self-disciplined at 14 years old. He was anti-drugs, anti-alcohol. He would not eat sugar nor drink a soft drink at 14 years old when he was training for football. He was that adamant he was going to make it and play for the LSU Tigers. He was going to march out on that field one day. That was what he felt like his goal was going to be. And the youth pastor at our church asked him, what are you going to do with your life? And he said, "I'm going to play football." He said, "But why are you going to play football?" And he said, "Because I want the platform to do something great for God." So this was not a child who was experimenting with drugs. We had the coroner do a television interview with me, and he even said on the show that there was nothing in Charlie's system other than this air, what they thought was air, in this can. But it's not air. It's a gas. It's a combustible gas. And what the coroner explained is this gas fills the lungs. It tells the brain to stop breathing. The response of the brain that tells you to breathe tells you to stop. And then they die of a heart attack.
Wow.
And then they asphyxiate.
You know, that's something to think about, because I know I've often said, I've told my husband, I've asked him to go and buy a can of air. And I said, isn't that something that we're paying for air, something that's free? Because I've always thought of it as just being air, and which is probably what these kids are thinking, that it's just air, but it's not just air.
It's not. So God has moved my message now from just bullying, because I am still speaking to schools and in churches about the bullying. But now God has showed me that there is a whole other avenue out there. And I want parents to understand that just because your children are surrounded by love, just because your children are growing up in a Christian home, a Christian environment, does not make them above falling for these things that they wouldn't normally do, or you wouldn't think that they would do.
Right, because it seems like it would just be innocent. Kids getting together, having fun. I mean, after all, it's not alcohol, it's not marijuana, it's not cocaine or whatever else. And it seems innocent, but it's really not.
No, it's not.
And I'm so glad that you mentioned even about the balloons, because myself as a parent, every party we have, I'm the one untying the balloons and handing it to my kids, and we're on the floor giggling, laughing, inhaling, sucking in the air that's in there and thinking it's funny. But even in that, something very tragic could happen. So I'm so glad that you're here sharing this today, because a lot of us didn't know that.
And see, I didn't either. And I've heard of people, huffing gas or paint thinners or what have you. I don't even know what they huff with the paint, but I'd heard of it roundabout ways of people doing that, but I'd never realized that there are these aerosol cans out there. There's over 1,400 of them on the market that these kids can get their hands on, that they can huff for a temporary high. Some of them get a high fixation from it. But the thing is that if you do a little research, you'll read that the Substance Abuse Clinic put out a statement stating that now, as of 2013, and here we are in 2015, that between the ages of 9 and 14, it is the number one abused drug amongst our young people of that age. And 1 in 3, by the time they're 14, have either huffed or they've been exposed to it. 1 in 3. That is a huge statistic.
It really is. Are there any signs that, parents can look for to know that their kids are doing this?
There's signs. Some of them break out with sores around their mouths because it is very addictive. It can be addictive.
Mm-hmm.
And so start paying attention if you see any aerosol cans laying around, or if they're going through their aerosol deodorants quicker than what they're supposed to be going through, any Glade air fresheners. If you notice your Glade air fresheners are running out in a hurry, just pay attention to those types of things. The Cool Whip cans that they're getting their hands on now and huffing. It's just so many things on the market.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm asking all parents to start paying attention to your aerosol cans.
Mm-hmm. And if a parent has a child that they suspect is huffing, or that they know for sure is huffing, where can they go for help, or is there a place that they can go?
There isn't a particular place, but there are counseling agencies in your area, and I encourage you to please reach out to a Christian counselor and do it in a hurry. Don't wait. This is so addictive. Once they start on it, it leads to more and more drugs. Like next thing you know, they're smoking pot, or they're taking pain pills just to get that next high, that next urgency. And so I'm urging parents to just make that step, make that call. Call a local drug abuse clinic or what have you in your area, and find out who the Christian counselors are that can help you.
So I guess when they start, it's just for fun.
Right.
But then it ends up being either addicting, or it could actually kill them.
That's correct.
Right. That's, it's amazing some of the things that's out there that we especially in our age group, that we never really knew about, and things, it's more and more things that are coming into the world today that kids are starting to do, and that it's so important for us to get that information out there, so that parents could know what to look for. And I think about how here it was your nephew that was not into drugs.
No.
That was an athlete, loved the Lord. And he just tried something for fun and not to get high. It wasn't to get high. It was just to laugh and giggle and have fun.
Right.
And so how much more the kids that are doing this every day, he sometimes you only have one shot. And that was that one shot, and he, he passed away from it.
Right.
And there are kids that are doing it constantly. So we really need to be aware of what's going on in our houses as parents, and notice if there are aerosol cans that are being emptied pretty quickly.
And ever since I put this on Facebook, and I changed the mission and spoke out about what happened to my nephew, I have had over 100 students that have emailed me, because I've given my email address, that have emailed me begging me to come to their schools. And it's all these local schools around here begging me to come, from Mississippi, Alabama, New Orleans, Louisiana, begging me to come to their schools because their peers are huffing. This is not something that's, just a couple of kids are doing. This is an epidemic. It is very prevalent in our schools and amongst our young people today. And it just breaks my heart that these kids are crying out for help, begging me to come speak to their schools and speak to their peers.
Right. I'm wondering, well, we're going to take a commercial break, and then when we come back, I want to go a little bit more in depth with this huffing and just kind of maybe talk about, that these are the symptoms, but what is the root of it, like what's causing them to turn to that. And maybe we can kind of talk about that when we come back from commercial break, when we return.
I'm Pastor Philip Pimlott, and this is my wife Kelly, and we want to extend a special invitation for you to come and visit us at Heartsease Family Life Church. Heartsease is a safe place for you and your family, a place where life starts, love happens, and purpose is revealed.
Our church is located at 12112 Florida Boulevard, and our services are Sunday mornings at 9 and 11 and Wednesday evenings at 6:45.
For more information, check out our website, hflc.us. Welcome home.
Welcome back to Keeping It Real. Our guest today, Stacie Triche, is here sharing a very personal story that is near and dear to her heart. And she's talking about the consequences of huffing and how our teenagers have been introduced to this. But it's so personal to her because her nephew, Charlie, who was 14 years old and like a son to her, recently passed away this past March as a result of huffing. And I know that it hasn't been that long, Stacie. I know this has got to be just so hard for you. But I also know that there is an assignment on your life from the Lord, and that Charlie's life was not in vain, and neither was his death, and that many, many lives will be touched through his testimony. And when we left off, you were just going to share with our viewers some of the reasons that kids may feel pressured into huffing.
There are, like I said, there's over 100 emails that I've received now of students contacting me telling me that they are begging me to come to their schools and speak to them because their peers are huffing. A lot of them are telling me it's because they're being molested at home. It's because they don't have fathers in the home, they don't have the mother figures in the home, or the mothers or fathers, vice versa, are not showing the love, or they're not there, they're absent from the home, and they're not giving them the attention that they need. And most young people today, they look for these things due to the fact that they are searching for an answer. They are looking for something to help them escape reality, because their reality is not, it's not pleasing. It's not something that they want to endure or have to live through. On the flip side of that, you have those who are innocent, like my nephew, who was surrounded by love, in family that just adored him. I mean, he had his own bedroom in my house, he had his own bedroom in his dad's house, and he could go to my parents anytime and have his own bedroom. He was very much so loved, who was fooled by the misconception that it was just air in a can, like helium in a balloon.
And so kids have the misconception that it's just fun and it's harmless.
Right.
And it's not.
And these children are crying out, and the letter, the most gut-wrenching letter that I've received yet, was from a 14-year-old girl, same age as my nephew. He made 15 on April 25th, who her classmate, who was one of her best friends, committed suicide that day. And she told me it was because he had a home environment he just couldn't endure. And it just absolutely broke my heart. And it just brought, that sickening feeling. And she told me that she knew how I felt having to bury my nephew, because she was going to have to endure burying her friend, one of her best friends. So I'm just begging parents today to please reach out, look for the signs. I'm begging youth today that if you see someone, if you hear of someone, my nephew spoke out. There were several kids that knew that he was doing it. He had announced on the bus on Friday, I found out later, that he told a group of boys and girls sitting around him that he was going to try it that weekend at home again. But they did not think to tell anybody. I met with a 15-year-old boy and his mother, and we were having a conversation, and this young man proceeded to tell me that, he was trained not to tattle, not to snitch. And don't we as parents teach children, stop tattling, go to your room. Why are you snitching? Parents, please tell your children it is okay to tattle. It's okay to snitch if it's something that's going to end a child's life or endanger someone.
That's right.
If someone on that bus had contacted my brother, or contacted or told a parent, and they would have contacted one of us, we would have been able to do some research and say, you know what, son, this can kill you. And he would still be here today. And I'm just urging young people to please have that courage. If you are saying that you are a real friend, parents, tell your children, if they are real friends to these children who are abusing drugs, who are huffing, they are going to go to a school counselor. They are going to speak to someone and let them know that this is happening. Because believe me when I tell you, there's no greater pain in this world than burying a child.
That's right.
No greater pain.
And Stacie, I know that there are a lot of children that's reaching out to you right now. I know during commercial break, you shared with us that you're getting a load of emails coming in from teenagers that are saying, please come to our school, and like you said, teenagers, they don't want to tell on each other. It's that loyalty thing. You don't break that code. You don't tell. But, they're still there going behind the scenes and reaching out to you through email and saying, please, my friend is doing this and I don't want to see them, end up committing suicide pretty
Right,
much is
right.
what they're doing when they take this and they die. You know, God has just really commissioned you to be able to go out there and do that. And I know with this book, He's opened up a door. And I know that you said that you were going to use this book, 100% of the proceeds to go
Yes.
towards doing this,
Yes,
right?
that's correct.
As-
I've had push cards made up, and it has the bottom of the push card has Charlie's story, and the top of the push card has the statistics that I mentioned earlier in the program, along with some other statistics. Just enough information to let parents know what's out there, the dangers, and also let the kids know that it can kill them. And I am finding when I step foot in these schools, it will blow your mind the way the students will react and look at you when you have a picture in front of them and you tell them that child died from it. It makes a big difference. It makes a major difference.
Right.
And so how can people get your book and how can they contact you?
It's available at Amazon.com. It's also available at Barnes & Noble Books A Million. And they can contact me through my email address, which is concealedseries@gmail.com. And also my main contact and where I have information about the dangers of inhalants is on my Facebook page. And that's facebook.com/concealed series.
Thank you. Well, I know, you know, I'm glad to know that you are going into the schools, and if there are any schools that need to get in contact with you, they can get in contact in that way. Are you doing any book signing at any point soon?
Yes, I am. I have several book signings lined up, as well as speaking engagements where the public is invited. And so I encourage you to go to my Facebook page and look at those upcoming events if you'd like to come.
Okay.
That's wonderful. Well, we are so glad that you've taken time, really, Stacie, to come and share with our viewers. I know that there are going to be parents watching this, teenagers watching this, and it's an important message that you carry. And I'm just I'm sorry about your loss, and I pray that you reach just so many people so that when we get to heaven, Charlie is just overwhelmed with the ones that we've been able to touch and reach.
Amen. Amen. Thank
God
you.
bless
Thank
you and
for
the work
having me.
that you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that's the end of our show, and we just want to let you know that if you know someone that is huffing, you can get in contact with Stacie. You can call our show. The number is on the screen. You have to use your voice in order for them to get help. Until next time, bye-bye.
Do you have a story? Send your personal story to info@adoreofhopela.com for a chance to be selected as a guest on the morning talk show, Keeping It Real. Today's episode's closed caption sponsor is Tamara Cleans. Always remember, don't stress, let Tamara clean the mess.